Just when you thought the 76ers season could not get any worse, it managed to turn into even more of a disaster. Sitting at 3-12 after week 5 of the NBA season, the belief their season may already be over isn't that crazy of a statement, especially with the things that happened this week. If you are new to the channel, this is my weekly recap called In Case You Missed It that drops every Monday at 3, and this week's big topic is the Philadelphia 76ers, as I got some things to get off my chest surrounding them. Having an expectation that this team would be a contender not only in the East, but for an NBA title, this start just greatly diminishes the chances of any success late in the season, and the optimism surrounding them has basically died league-wide. The fact the Big Three has played only 6 minutes together in 15 games due to all of them being injured, and the health isn't even the biggest problem right now, that is the biggest concern. The biggest issue with this team right now is the drama surrounding them and their negative media publicity, especially surrounding former MVP Joel Embiid. Before this week, Joel Embiid had not touched the court, yet still managed to lead the team in technical fouls and suspensions. To make matters worse, he has played horrible basketball since being healthy. Wondering why he is struggling to this extent is a big question circling around the league, but this week Tyrese Maxey made it very clear why. News broke that in a team meeting, Maxey called out Joel Embiid for being late to everything, among other things, exposing how unprofessional Embiid has been to start the season. This was shocking as it clearly wasn't something that should have left the meeting, but it did. Although Embiid had accepted the criticism, he went on to say he is sometimes confused by what the Sixers are trying to execute on the court. When I hear him say this, my mind immediately jumps to him trying to deflect the criticism from him onto the coach, as the issue he mentioned is pretty much based on what the coach wants to see. Either way, Embiid has been unprofessional on and off the court all season, with him trying to troll the media while at the free throw line, his conduct in the locker rooms, among other things. This is a superstar player acting this way. And while doing this, he is hurting his team that is already struggling with chemistry issues and to simply win games. Health-wise, though, 6 minutes into the only game the Big Three had played, Paul George hyperextended his knee for the second time in the past 2 months. Now Paul George is going to miss more time, and shockingly enough, Joel Embiid is hurt again, as he will be out until at least next week. The saddest part about it is that no one is even shocked by these two being hurt again. As we all know, these stars historically break like glass. Now, a struggling team that sits 3-12 has internal drama, unreliable stars, and have no chemistry, and will now be fighting for their season only a month in. Honestly, I am not even sure how the 76ers can turn this around because they were thought to have depth, but when the stars don't play, the depth turns into starters. The talent on the roster on paper outside of the Big Three doesn't even look bad, but they have not played to their individual expectations, so the possibility of this team not turning their season around becomes very real. Do I believe that the 76ers are out of contention already? Given how weak the East looks right now, they probably can coast to a play-in spot. But if they keep performing like this and the behind-the-scenes drama turns into a bigger story than we are led to believe, we could be having a conversation about them and who they are going to draft with a top 5 pick, rather than if they can beat the Celtics in a 7-game series. Chemistry with Big Threes is also a huge factor into how well they perform in the playoffs, and if they make the playoffs with PG, Maxey, and Embiid playing under 20 games together, they will not in any way be able to beat Boston, Cleveland, or New York, who they will probably play in the first round if they find themselves as the 6th seed or even a play-in team. This team is in serious trouble, though, if they don't figure this out soon. Before we talk about the Hornets and make a controversial statement on Lamelo Ball, we must talk about this week for the Timberwolves, who are dealing with such bad chemistry issues. 2 of their starters are seemingly frustrated. We knew adding Julius Randle to any team would make for certain chemistry issues given his playstyle, but to see what went down in Toronto this week between him and Gobert was definitely eye-opening, and it kind of explains how inconsistent they have been as a team. In this clip, Randle obviously was not trying to give Gobert the ball, which he didn't. In response, Gobert waited to be called for a 3-second violation. This angered Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves because there was no effort. But at the end of the day, when has an offense ever seen Rudy in the paint posting up and try to give him the ball? He has no post moves or real skill offensively, so personally you can't even be mad at Randle. However, you can be mad about how the team is extremely inconsistent, and because of that, they are sitting at the 10 seed in the West right now. Now shifting our focus to the Charlotte Hornets, we have to talk about Lamelo Ball for many different reasons this week. This week he was benched in crunch time due to his play, and he dropped 50 in a game. That is just absolutely wild, but in all honesty, I understand it. There is a narrative surrounding LaMelo Ball right now that he is flying into the top 5 discussions for point guards, and although he has been amazing, I don't think I am personally ready to go there yet, and my reasoning behind it is simply because of everything that led him to being benched in crunch time. LaMelo Ball has been hooping, but there are glaring weaknesses to him offensively, as he has a very questionable shot selection, leading him to be extremely inefficient. With the shot selection being as bad as it is, he often can shoot his team out of games, which is why he had to be benched against the Nets. He is also turnover prone and foul prone, as he isn't a great defender. He has been amazing so far this season, but some narratives are forgetting to note the things that are hurting the team in terms of wins and losses with the top point guard narrative. And the controversial benching this week honestly was a justified decision by the coach. Another young team in the Houston Rockets showcased how much depth they truly have this week, as they have 5 players who can go for 25 or more points on any given night, as well as having a surplus of players who are elite on both ends. This team has proven to be one of the biggest young threats in the West, but one thing that proved to be a big factor in their losses this week was their three-point shooting, as it is horrible. Winning the amount of games they have with that limitation is very impressive, but to take them seriously, they need to figure that out. A bigger problem is that they seemingly don't want to trade anyone for anything, so there isn't much room to work with. If they were willing to move a player or two, they could fix the issue. I mean, Cam Johnson is sitting in Brooklyn right now. The Rockets' focus seems to be more towards a superstar player, which I honestly think is unnecessary given the young talent they have. But I'd much rather see them get a shooter or two than a superstar. We couldn't forget about the Cavaliers this week, as they lost their first game of the season to the Celtics on Tuesday. In that game, we saw Darius Garland go off for 8 points and 7 assists on 3 of 21 shooting, which equates to 14% from the floor. The lights got brighter for the Cavs, and we saw exactly what we've seen from them in the playoffs. I want to become a believer in them, but when we see this, it is hard to take them serious. I could be overcritical, but Garland specifically has proven he cannot perform in the spotlight, and with him being a driving force as to why they are successful, games like this make the thought of them as contenders a questionable one, even after an amazing start. As for the Celtics, they showed us why they are easily the favorites to win the East again, and any doubt about that is delusional at this point. It was a big week for other Eastern Conference rivals, as the Knicks finally seemed to be clicking, but the Milwaukee Bucks managed to play themselves out of the horrible start, as they now sit at 8-9 as the 5 seed in the East. Giannis is obviously the driving force behind that, but the adjustments they made, such as starting Andre Jackson Jr. and bringing Gary Trent Jr. off the bench, have been big moves. Jackson provides elite perimeter defense in the starting lineup, and Gary Trent Jr. has been on a heater since coming off the bench. Shout out to Doc Rivers for this adjustment. The Bucks are also aggressively pursuing Torrey Craig from the Bulls, a perfect 3-and-D complement for their team, which would be a great fit. Moving out west, we have funny things to talk about, as the Lakers had 2 funny losses this week, as the Magic stunned them behind a Franz Wagner game winner. Shout out to the Magic real quick. And then the Lakers lost to the Nuggets at home, despite controlling the entire first half, then getting absolutely smoked in the second. Can't blame Darvin Ham for that one, but I don't know what to say. The Nuggets are just their kryptonite. The Thunder had a rough week, as they have no height until they got iHeart, who looked great in his debut back on Wednesday. But in an effort to still compete, J-Dub and SGA both played like not just an all-star duo, but all NBA guards. SGA's game log this week was 36 points and 8 assists in a loss versus Dallas, 32.7 assists in San Antonio and another loss, and 28, 5, and 4 in a win over the Blazers. While in the same 3 games, J-Dub went for 27, 5, and 5, 27, 10, and 6, and 37, and 8. What a week for the Thunder duo. Unfortunately, the wins did not come with the performances. Staying on the topic of your top performers of the week, Lauri Markkanen is finally playing great basketball after a slow start to the season. Andrew Wiggins looks to be back to his non-all-star, all-star form. Jordan Poole has stayed amazing. And your Week 5 awards are as follows. The MVP is Giannis, as he went off in basically every game this week on both ends. Your disappointment of the week is Darius Garland, specifically from his performance in Boston. The surprise player of the week was Brandon Brandon Miller, as he caught fire this week. He averaged 33.7 rebounds and 3 assists on amazing efficiency the last 3 games this week. The team of the week is the Los Angeles Clippers, as they went 4-0 while playing good competition and dealing with new injuries to players like Norman Powell. And the worst team of the week is the Los Angeles Lakers, despite the amazing play of Dalton Knecht, who I forgot to mention earlier. It really just boils down to how bad their 2 home losses were, as they lost in shocking and brutal fashion. As you see on the screen, the power rankings are up. Not really much to discuss. The Suns, very annoying. No Kevin Durant. He comes back this week. Please turn this season around for us. The Spurs had a strong week despite injuries. They beat Golden State and OKC, who are the 1 and 2 seeds in the West. And the Mavericks players stepped up without Luka, as they had a great week. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. This has been another episode of In Case You Missed It, the weekly recap on this channel that drops every Monday at 3. If you want to see last week's episode, it's on the screen. It's about the Warriors. And if you want to know who the best player on every team has been so far in 2025, click on the bigger video on the screen, as the answer might shock you as to who's been the best on each team. Y'all stay safe. Have a good one. Bye.